Every year, thousands of human remains are found in the United States, and in one of every 4 instances, authorities can't identify the body. That's starting to change. I'm Dave Killen, co-host of The Unidentifieds, a new limited series podcast from the Oregonian and Oregon Live. We go deep into several cold cases and explain the science that's helping experts give these long-forgotten people their names back. Look for The Unidentifieds after you've finished listening to this podcast. Subscribe to The Unidentifieds on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
NIL Now with Lauren Sisler and Kevin Jones.
If you want to learn more about name, image, and likeness, you need to go to The Source. The NIL Now podcast from Headline Studio and Reddit highlights the biggest storylines with comments from key guests in the college and high school NIL space.
NIL is not a cherry on top. It needs to be thought about as a part of these young men and women's future to, further their careers. You should be able to leave college with something.
Subscribe to NIL Now on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's Thursday and the NFL schedule comes out later today, but we're not going to talk about that quite yet. We're going to save that for Friday once everything drops later tonight at 8 p.m. But we're going to talk about something, or I should say someone else, and who else would it be? Joe Burrow. It's Thursday. I guess we could call it Burrow Day at this point in terms of the Strictly Stripes podcast world. So that one's going to be a lot of fun. And this is going to be a lot of fun as we talk more about his contract and what that means with all the other deals going on around the league. Welcome into another Thursday edition of the Strictly Stripes podcast. Muhammad Ahmad, Andrew Gillis, and Mike Nizak here with you to get your day started. And before we get your day started, we want to remind you guys to sign up for our Cincinnati Football Insider subtext service. It's the Cool Kids Club, as I've been saying for many, many days and weeks on this podcast, but I've said enough. I want to give the floor to Mike because, Mike, I think you truthfully have been the most engaged out of all three of us on subtext. Your boy's got to step his game up a little bit, but, why is Cincinnati Football Insider so awesome, and what are fans missing out on with, our subtext service?
Well, it's a direct line to us and to try to, have conversations about all the different breaking news or topics on their mind. They could pitch ideas for this podcast or for stories. We've asked them questions to help out in different things. And I think it's a fun, like I said, direct way to sort of talk Bengals and have your kind of opinions heard by our whole team. So, yeah, it's fun to kind of sort of get involved and easy to sign up.
And like you said, it's really easy to sign up. Go to cleveland.com/Bengals, click on the blue banner at top of the page. It'll direct you to type in your phone number so you can start getting text messages from us. $4.99 a month to start, but you get a 2-week free trial, and you can text stop anytime to the number that you text to be a part of the line. So again, cleveland.com/Bengals. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we can't wait for you to join our growing subscriber base. All right, so jumping into things, guys, I just realized, other than maybe a brief mention, we haven't really talked about Lamar Jackson's contract and what it means for Joe Burrow, which makes sense because, we were so busy with the draft, and Lamar got his deal done literally hours before the first round of the NFL draft kicked off. But I wanted to kind of save this conversation once we got through a lot of the draft conversations and roster questions that we've had, and, we're still going to have, but, want to kind of sort of pause and turn back to this because obviously Joe Burrow's contract situation is not going anywhere. So obviously, just looking at Lamar's deal to, refresh others, it's a 5-year deal, $260 million total. He got $185 million guaranteed. 135 of it was guaranteed at signing. So that makes him the richest player in the league, $52 million per year, which is higher than what Jalen Hurts got. Jalen Hurts got with his deal, I think about a week or 2 weeks sometime before that. So I think we can all agree that that's pretty much like the $52 million a year is a good baseline for what Burrow's going to get. But when you look at Lamar's deal and everything I just kind of laid out there, what do you look at from his deal and say, okay, based on this deal, and maybe even based on Jalen Hurts' deal, X, Y, or Z is applicable to Joe Burrow's future contract?
Well, I think, one of the things that has really kind of been unique to me is kind of how these things are structured. Obviously, it takes a while to kind of, dissect how these things are done. Like in 2023 and in 2024, Lamar is only going to make, 22 and change against the cap, and then 32.4 against the cap over the next 2 years. Then that number explodes in 2026 and 2027, where he's currently scheduled to make $74.65 million against the cap. Now, obviously, that sounds insane now, but so did a quarterback making, $55 million a year, 5 years ago. So, we'll see kind of where we're at in 2026. So, but that has really been kind of interesting to me because, you look at that, there's 2 void years at the end of it. You're talking about 2 cap numbers that frankly aren't terrible for Baltimore. And if you really want to extend it, probably 3. 22 is not bad. Is certainly not bad. I think that's probably still kind of underpaying what he's worth against the cap. Then 32, then 43. I just think that, one of the things you could take from that if you're the Bengals is, I've made this point on this podcast before. There are a lot of, Joe Burrow's, of course he's going to take less because Joe Burrow wants to win. Well, Joe Burrow's not going to take $6 million less, and that means that T. Higgins is coming back. Like, that's not the way that works. But if you structure it like kind of Philly and Baltimore have done, where you just kind of say that's future Cincinnati Bengals problems, like that's not our concern right now. I think that there's a way to kind of fit some of the guys that you want to fit in, like a T. Higgins, like a Logan Wilson, if the cap numbers in the first few years are not egregious.
Yeah, to me, it's the length of the deal. I think he was going for something shorter, if I'm not mistaken, or that's what he kind of wanted to have another bite at the apple. But it sounds, with Hurts and now Jackson, pretty standard that these, the shortest the teams are trying to go is 5 years, to make it longer, to spread out those cap hits and to make it so you have some stability that you don't have to worry about it every couple of years. So I think it'd be hard now for, Burrow to ask for something shorter, which is good news. I think you want to go as long as you can for these teams. So, with both of these guys getting 5 years deals and sort of setting the market, I think that's a good thing for the Bengals in particular.
So what you're saying is the Bengals shouldn't do the Jackson model or the Hurts model, but do more like the Mahomes model where it's spread out over a decade?
Well, I think ideally that's what you'd want, so you don't have to worry about it for the next decade. But I'm saying at a minimum, 5 years is a pretty good length, so you don't have to do it every 3 years or 4 years or worry about it like that. So you've got some time now to sort of build your roster and figure things out. So 5 as the minimum. I mean, yeah, I think that's a decent number. I mean, but the more you could push it, the better for the organization, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the unanimous consensus that a lot of people would agree with is, whether you do 5, 7, 8, 10 years, like whatever you do in that range, 5 is the minimum. Jalen and Lamar, I think, sort of set that standard because, like you said, let's say they both got 4-year extensions rather than, 5 or above. Then it's like, okay, if you're going to still pay like Burrow that 51, 52, 53 and above per year, I mean, you can do it, but you can almost guarantee yourself that you're not going to keep T. Higgins because that's a large cash flow to where you could say, oh, we're going to pay Burrow this much and still find a way to squeeze in T. I mean, even at that point, I mean, well, you keep Jamar, but then you got to like think about, okay, well, we have to pay Jamar a lot too. Like it makes you sweat maybe a tiny bit. So you're not sweating as much now that you have a higher ceiling in terms of how high you can go, or I guess what's the base minimum you could do for years. But to your point, though, Mike, people might look at the Mahomes deal and say, what he did was kind of rare. It was just something that he wanted and the team wanted. Like, do you think maybe Mahomes is more of the exception? Like, do you think it might be kind of tricky for the Bengals to pull off something like that?
Well, I mean, it depends how amenable Joe Burrow is, really. I mean, they've done it before. They locked up Carson Palmer to essentially a 9-year deal where they tacked on a bunch of years to his existing contract. So it's not out of the realm. It's just a matter of what these agents and what the player wants. Mahomes was okay with it. I mean, he became identified with Kansas City with that early success. He wanted to kind of make his mark. I think, Joe Burrow would be well placed to do that as well. The organization's shown that they're trying to build around him and are serious about giving him everything at his disposal to win games. I don't think it'd be the wrong move for either party, because I think you want to try to, we've talked about him possibly taking less or whatever, but if that's the way to help and try to, create stability, I don't think that's the wrong thing. From the opposite perspective, it's not a good thing, because, you want another contract to sort of, once the market keeps going up, to try to, capitalize on that. But, there is something just to be said for stability.
Do you agree with that, Andrew? Do you think that the Bengals, based on their previous trends with Palmer and even Andy Dalton and what Mahomes did, do you think that Joe Burrow will be kind of amendable to something like that?
You're saying in terms of a long-term deal,
right? Versus like a 5-6 year deal, like Hurts and I lost my train of thought. Hurts and like Lamar Jackson and those guys.
Well, I think truthfully, I'm not sure it really matters. I think there was a report the other day that, So first off, everybody kind of talked about Deshaun Watson being this massive deal that, oh, wow, this is huge, blah, blah, blah. Well, they've already restructured that. Like they're already kind of working on deals like that. Like deals can get restructured and extended and all that. So I'm not sure it really matters, because Mahomes' contract was already restructured. There was, I think, a report the other day that he was, there was another one that he was going to extend, or they were going to redo it. So, he becomes the highest paid quarterback in the league. Like, I'm not sure that it's particularly different, just because, it's not something that you sign and you set aside and then, okay, well, now it's over. Like, no, if you sign that deal and in 3 or 4 years, Joe Burrow says, I want to talk again, you're going back to the negotiating table.
And so to kind of add to Mike's point, so you mentioned the Carson Palmer extension that was 9 years. With Andy Dalton, it was kind of similar. It was a 6-year extension that he inked before the 2014 season, which was, it was his 4th season, so the last year on his rookie deal. It was worth $115 million, which at the time was pretty good. Today, you'd think that's chump change, but, that was basically, almost a decade ago. So the Bengals haven't shied away from locking up quarterbacks, and they haven't shied away from doing it long term. I think that would be the best case for the Bengals, because think about this too. The good thing with the Mahomes deal is, because you're kind of spreading out that cash flow, it makes it easier to keep a lot of your key pieces they have. Like, you still got Travis Kelce locked down. You still got Chris Jones. And obviously they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, and he went and got paid in Miami. But beyond that, you still have a lot of your Pro Bowl, all-pro playmakers, and you're making room for other newer, younger guys to come in and basically do the same thing. So I think that's where, if you talk about wanting to keep Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and or Logan Wilson, because obviously I say and or because it's tough to say if you can keep all those guys and for how much. But if you want to go that route and you spread out the cap hit, similar to like what Andrew said about Lamar's deal, which, if you look at it from Spot Track, like he described, it makes sense. And if you spread that out in an even longer span of time, then it only allows the cap space to breathe even more and to allow other guys to kind of get what's there. So, I think that could work out. Obviously, that's a discussion for Duke Tobin, Katie Blackburn, and Joe Burrow's agent at the end of the day. But I want to kind of look at sort of the guaranteed money, because I wonder if there's a floor that's been kind of set here. So you look at Lamar's guaranteed at signing, which was $135. You compare that to Jalen Hurts. At signing, he was guaranteed $110. Josh Allen, I should say, from the Buffalo Bills, $100 million. And then I'll get to Mahomes in a second, because his is kind of exceptional. But like, when you look at those sort of amounts of money guaranteed at signing, like, does that kind of determine, okay, Burrow's going to get anywhere from 100 to 135 at signing? Is there really a correlation there, or do you think there's no impact when it comes to the guarantees?
Well, I think you've kind of seen this trend happen where, a quarterback's going to make, more guaranteed money than the last guy that signed. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Burrow comes in at, $200 million guaranteed or $190 guaranteed or whatever, total guaranteed, because that's more than Lamar. And, in terms of fully guaranteed, wouldn't be surprised if he makes $150 because Lamar got a $135. It's just kind of the way things work here. That's the latest guy to sign is going to be the richest guy. So I just think it's I think it's fair to say he's going to make more than Lamar for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the next guy that's the late. All these guys are going to be the highest paid player in the league until the next guy. So
Here's what's interesting, though. The reason why I wanted to hold off on Mahomes for a second is because he was only guaranteed 63 at signing. Now, overall, he was guaranteed 141, like total, but at signing, he only got about half of that, which, again, makes sense because that allows them to sort of spread it out over that span. These guys I mentioned have 5-6-year deals. Allen's on a 6-year deal. The other two are on 5-year deals. So that's where you kind of have to compact that more at signing. But, again, I wonder, though, if Burrow does like the 9-10-year route, I mean, he won't get 63. He'll get more than that because the market's still getting reset. But I just don't know if it'll go high enough to where like he's getting Hurts guaranteed at signing or Jackson guaranteed at signing. Doesn't affect the total guarantee, just what he gets when he puts the pen to paper. But before we go to break, and I don't know if this will open up a debate or a short-ordered answer, but did Lamar get overpaid? Like, do you guys think what he got was fair? Do you think it was unfair? Like, I mean, did he get what he deserved?
I think so. You need a quarterback to win. I think kind of what happened, and obviously we don't cover the team. We're not kind of involved in those day-to-day conversations. But I think kind of you look at what happened, and Lamar wanted to be paid like an elite quarterback, and it seemed like the Ravens were hesitant to do that. I think the Jalen Hurts contract might have changed some things, changed some opinions there, where they kind of looked at it and said, okay, the longer we wait, this is just going to get more difficult for us. So. Yeah, I mean, I think he got what you would consider to be fair. You look at kind of how the contract is going to break down for the next 3 years. There would be a lot of dead money going into 2026. If they decide to move on from him or something like that. But I just think that you need a quarterback to win, and he gives you something that no other quarterback in the league can give you. I mean, I'm not saying he's the best quarterback in the league or even the best quarterback in his own division because I think that's Burrow. But, yeah, I think he got what he was worth.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he's coming off 2 years where he wasn't as good, that he was in 2020 or 2019 or as effective. Some of that had to do with the roster around him. Some of that had to do with his health. Maybe that contract did also contribute to that, just bothered him not having that security. So maybe he's able to sort of rekindle that magic. But, he's going to have a much worse roster than he did, 3 years ago as well. So you better hope he's the answer because now you are giving him, all the money in the world. And so he's got to do it. And if he has to do it by himself, he's got to do it. It's going to be hard, though.
Fingers crossed. And also, I think it kind of makes sense because, I could see why they brought in OBJ for just a year, which, again, notwithstanding the fact that he has multiple injuries and just came off a torn ACL, I could see where it's like, okay, we're going to pay Lamar all this money, so, we're going to keep OBJ for a year, see how he does. Because, if OBJ, blows people's minds and just has a great year and his deal is up, I mean, they're not going to keep him because – I mean, Lamar's getting paid. I don't know how you can have the cap space for someone like that. So I could see where, they didn't just do it to lure him back, but they said, okay, we'll bring you this guy for a year, but we probably can't pay him after the fact because he's going to be expensive, and I think he was already expensive for the year they got him. But interesting observation there, speaking of cap space. But an interesting conversation about Burrow's contract we're not having might shock you, and we're going to have that conversation when we return on the Strictly Stripes podcast.
Hey guys, if you love college football, we think you'll like the College Football Survivor Show. I'm Doug Lamarice, and my co-host Shahan Jeharaja and I, each week we talk about the best programs, best coaches, best players in the sport. It's all football, no off-field stuff, no legislation. It's about the teams that are going to matter most in the playoff race. Will Georgia three-peat? Always on the lookout for angry Bama. The Big Ten, Ohio State and Michigan battling at the top and Penn State on the rise. The Pac-12 matters again, not just USC, but Oregon and Washington as well. The playoff is expanding. Expand your podcast listening. Try the College Football Survivor Show wherever you find podcasts.
All right, thanks for staying with us on the Strictly Stripes podcast. Before we continue talking about Joe Burrow's pending contract extension, we want to remind you guys to sign up for our Strictly Stripes newsletter, the best Cincinnati Bengals newsletter you get in your inbox every morning for free. Not everything is free in this world, but some things are, and this is one of them. All you got to do is go to cleveland.com/newsletters, select the Strictly Stripes newsletter, sign up. Takes nothing more than a minute, and you get it in your inbox every morning. So make sure you sign up. So we focused a lot on Lamar Jackson, his deal, what that determines not just for the market, but for Joe Burrow's deal, which is still a work in progress. Here's something I was thinking about, though, and I know Mike Florio from NBC Sports kind of talked about this, and it got me thinking, and he believes that it's not going to be Joe Burrow who's the king of the hill. It's not going to be Lamar Jackson or Justin Herbert who's going to be the highest paid guy in 2023. He thinks it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. Now, you might be thinking, wait, Mahomes is already on like a 10-year deal. He's making $45 million a year. But if you think about it, I mean, Lamar's making $52 a year, and then if you think about how much Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert are going to make, he could be $10 million a year behind them, and you're talking about a guy who I think we could agree to an extent is the best player in the game. So do you imagine a world where like Patrick Mahomes and his agent and the Chiefs are just sitting, watching everything unfold, only to come out and say, all right, we're going to add some years and money onto Mahomes' deal, and he is going to be the top dog, not literally but figuratively? Could you imagine a situation like that?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, at some point maybe he gets more money, but I mean, I don't know that he A, needs it, and B, necessarily that's a driving force in sort of how he's approached things. I mean, he signed a 10-year deal for a reason. He knew at some point, guys were going to keep surpassing him. So, I just don't see it. I mean, being it like a huge deal, to be honest. I mean, they just won the Super Bowl. I think he really wants to sort of be in that Tom Brady discussion with rings, and so he needs obviously a couple more.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you attest to that, Andrew, or do you think there's a different way to look at that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily buy into the whole, everybody, they're like, obviously players are concerned about their legacies, especially players like Patrick Mahomes, who, I mean, you could make a case like if he retired today as a Hall of Famer. And actually, I think he is a Hall of Famer if he retired today. It's just, I don't know, like these guys are so competitive, and everybody says, oh, well, that means that they're going to give up millions of dollars because they want to win, or they're okay with not being the highest paid player in the sport. Well, okay. Well, I mean, some of these guys, like especially Patrick Mahomes, who, has, financial interest in the Kansas City Royals. Like, this is a guy who, I mean, everybody loves more money. It doesn't matter who you are. Everybody wants more money. And, if
he cared about money, he wouldn't be investing in the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I'll give you that.
Baseball. Yeah, that's a great investment.
Oh, and the MLS team that they have. I forget the name of it, but he's also investing in that apparently.
Sure. So that's another. Yeah, exactly. So again, I just think with.
Ironically, the headline on ESPN's MLB page is the year of the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad teams, and the picture is a Kansas City player diving and missing a ball. So
yeah, the Royals and the A's are abysmal this year. They're so bad. But yeah, I just think that kind of going back to it, like I don't think it particularly matters in that way, just because I think a lot of these guys kind of have the mentality of hey, who cares? I understand, they want to build the best team around me, but I'm Patrick Mahomes, or I'm Joe Burrow, or I'm Jalen Hurts, whoever. Roll the ball out and I'll go beat whoever I have to beat. Like, I just think that, people kind of have the competitiveness. They just look at it the wrong way. And just, a lot of these guys are so competitive. They're thinking, I can do this. Like, we all just watched, not just me, we all just watched Patrick Mahomes win the Super Bowl on like 1 1/4 ankles. Like he won that game where I think like 50% of their plays or something ridiculous were first downs. And like, besides Travis Kelce, like how many guys on that team, Sky Moore had his first ever touchdown in the Super Bowl. Like that was just a roster that
Darius Toney had the longest punt return ever in a Super Bowl.
Well, that's not. I mean, that wasn't Mahomes, but I guess my point
but
is,
it's just to show you, like they just had random guys doing crazy things.
You can do that on offense when you have a Patrick Mahomes, and I think Patrick Mahomes knows that. So I'm not sure it necessarily always plays out like a guy like Tom Brady, because everybody always says like oh, well, Tom Brady took less. Well, yeah, the reason Tom Brady took less was obviously because he wanted to win, but also because, his then wife at the time was making $100 million a year. Like, he wasn't exactly, like strapped for cash at that point.
Well, apparently now he's not doing that deal with Fox Sports. I think I saw that he turned down the offer that he initially accepted, which would have paid him more than like what he made in 23 years combined as an NFL quarterback. But I mean, that kind of like proves the point.
I don't think that's official. I think that
there's rumors. I should say there's rumors that he's considering turning it down. Thank you for the clarification. It was something I saw on Twitter. I mean, Tom Brady's retired. I don't follow him as closely as I used to, guys. Forgive me. Yeah, I mean, all that's true. I mean, talk about investing. Like, Joe Burrow's already a savvy entrepreneur. Like, he has an investment in the Pro Volleyball Federation that's supposed to launch soon. I know they're launching a team in Nebraska soon that his family has a stake in with Jason Derulo, the rapper. Him and Blake Griffin and Sam Hubbard and a few other guys have a farm in Iowa, which I'm interested to ask Burrow about that whenever we see him later in the offseason, whenever that is. I think that would actually be kind of cool to know about. These guys got money, man. Like, we could go on and on about having that much money, and we already know Mike would go to Vegas or do whatever. Andrew would live on an island, be an oil baron / oil, whatever the word is that you guys keep debating on. But these guys are going to get their money. I see what Mike Florio's saying, but I somewhat disagree. I mean, you guys realize, too, like, Mahomes gets a lot of money for winning the Super Bowl. Like, he got $1.25 million for winning MVP, and he got the same amount for winning a Super Bowl, and I think the same amount for winning an AFC championship. Like, that's all. I mean, to us, it's a lot. To him, it's like chump change, but he got another $3 million just for being that good. Like, he's getting his payday either way, so I don't think he cares either way, but maybe the Chiefs feel differently about it. Who knows? Just to wrap up here, a quick little guessing game, because we have guessed this question time and time again on this podcast, but just throw me a date when you think we are going to hear about Joe Burrow officially getting inked. Just any date, off the cuff, or if you've already thought about it. What is the date going to be?
I'm going to say July 24th.
Okay, that's the start of training camp, right?
Yeah, that it's a Monday. I think it would be the start of the week. I'm guessing in terms of when training camp is going to start. I think that would be a good time. I've kind of said on here before, I think, when you get into training camp season, you just kind of look, that's when Mahomes signed, that's when Allen signed. Like, a lot of these guys kind of sign as a precursor to the season, and I think you're going to see the same thing with Burrow. So July 24th, why not?
I'll just go. I was going to go. Let's see what day this is. Hold on.
Oh, this man's just trying to go with the trends.
I just want to pick like a
I'm just
Sunday.
messing with you.
Well,
no, for sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Pick the Monday. I'll pick the Friday before that, July 21st.
Okay. I'm going to pick somewhere even farther than that. I am going to do Monday, June 26th. I don't think we're going to have a completely chill break between the end of workouts and training camp. I think we're going to be
Monday, June 26th.
Yeah, that's a Monday.
No, that is June 26th. Oh, June 26th. Sorry,
June, not July. June 26th. I feel like we'll be sitting.
Wait, no, Wednesday is June 28th.
Yeah,
Monday's June 26th.
That's what I said. Monday, June 26th.
You say when? I thought you said Wednesday.
No. I said I'm going to go way back from what you guys had. Way back. Not Wednesday. Going farther way back. Get your hearing checked, Andrew. Just kidding. No, Monday, June 26th. I think it's completely random. And it makes sense because it's between the end of workouts and the beginning of training camp. And we're just going to wake up one morning and Ian Rappaport is going to drop the news and we're going to be scrambling to get everything together. And hopefully that's not the case, but you never know. It's the NFL. You just never know. Well, stay with us because, like I said, tonight the NFL schedule drops. We're going to talk about that first thing Friday morning, so make sure you tune in for that podcast as we break down everything about the Bengals 2023 schedule. But once again, for myself, Andrew, and Mike, I'm Muhammad Ahmad. See you Friday.